Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Empowered Presence. Today's show is going to be phenomenal because we have a phenomenal guest. The road to career success and happiness starts with having big dreams. Today's guest dreamed of scientific discoveries, working on Broadway, and saving the world. And all of those big dreams have come true. Madelyn Mackie is a published biochemistry researcher. Hello. Has worked at four Tony Award winning theaters and responded to disasters all over the country as an officer with the American Red Cross. Ladies and gentlemen, here to help us activate our own career dreams, please join me in welcoming Madelyn Mackie. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, activators. It is so good to be here with Melanie on Empowered Presence this morning. We're going to make things happen. We're going to activate today. So I hope you're ready.
Ooh, I am so ready. I love your energy. This is going to be so good.
Thank you. Thank you. I've had a cup of coffee, so we good.
Love that. So you were talking about basically how you were able to shift, in other words, activate your brand in a new industry, in a brand new field. And your transitions have been completely different, right? We're not talking about marketing to sales here. That's kind of related. We're talking Red Cross.
Right. We're talking
Broadway.
science to arts to disaster response to entrepreneurship. Yes, of the whole spectrum.
So I would love to learn more about how you're able to really use your skills and your uniqueness to position yourself for these totally different industries. Please talk to us about how that all played out.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's really about being very clear on what your skills are that's relevant to the next role. I think a lot of people, they stop at, I know what my skills are. I know what my superpowers are, and I'm going to force those superpowers into the next role. And that's not the way it works. I knew I was a linear thinker. It's why I was good in chemistry. I could put hydrogen and oxygen together, but I didn't care if you had water or you blew up the lab. So it wasn't my passion, but I was very process driven. I was very organized. I was very linear on how I did things. So when I decided to shift over to the theater, which was my passion, I looked for roles that fit that strength of being a linear thinker, being organized, being process driven in a creative environment. So it was really about figuring out, well, what is the right role for me? I didn't ask anyone else to figure that out. I looked at it. I talked to people. What do you do in theater? Oh, you're a lighting designer. Well, you have to climb ladders, and I'm scared of heights, so that's not going to work. And, oh, you're a painter. Okay, I don't like to get my hands dirty. That's not going to work either. Oh, you're a stage manager. What's that? Oh, you organize backstage. You lay out the props. You keep the rehearsals on time. You create a process. Uh-oh. That's me. That's what I like to do. Okay, that's the role for me. So it was really not only being in touch with my skills or my brand, right? This is who Madelyn is known for. It was also figuring out how that skill set would fit in this new ecosystem.
I love that. And I think a big part that you're talking about that a lot of people don't do is that investigative part, right? Oh, I want to get into tech. Well, there's a whole lot to tech, and really understanding by asking the people working in those industries, hey, what does that entail? What does that look like? So that you can get a very clear understanding of the role before you just go applying to tech jobs, right?
Exactly.
So I love that you did that work. How did you find the people to connect with and chat with about?
So for all of my transitions, I was already in that space unofficially. So
Mm.
I was in college, and when I should have been in the lab putting together the hydrogen and oxygen, I was sneaking over to the theater, and I would help my theater friends with their lines, building sets, sewing costumes. So I was already in that ecosystem to have those conversations. When I went from the theater to the Red Cross, well, I was already a disaster volunteer. So I had been volunteering for 3 or 4 years. So I had an insider's view of, well, what does a disaster manager do? And what does a trainer do? And what do we do over here in the donation fundraising side of the house? I was a part of the ecosystem, so it was very easy to navigate. And even when I started my own business as a career coach and resume writer, I volunteered at the Career One Stop in my neighborhood and wrote resumes just to see if I would like it. So these shifts didn't happen overnight. There was a plan and a thought process to it of let me learn about it. And so there were several ideas I had about shifting that when I explored it a little deeper, I said, "Oh, that's not for me. That's not my tribe. That's not my space." Though I could do that, right? A lot of us can do a lot of things. There's a lot of people on this call that are probably Jills of all trade, Jacks of all trade, that you're like, I could work anywhere. But not every culture, not every industry, not every role is going to be the right fit for your personality and your values and your cultural needs. So during that exploration of volunteering, talking to others in the field, looking around, keeping your eyes open, and exploring, like really slow down a little bit and take some time to explore what else is out there.
I love that. And something I say when I was heavy into the resume world, and folks would come to me and say, I want to switch careers. So one of the first thing I would tell them is to immerse yourself in that new industry. And you seamlessly have done that, right? Where you were already there. You
Mhm.
already knew who the players were. You already knew what the job was entailing because you were volunteering, you were hanging out over there. And so I love that. Now, how do you, when it comes to resume and like actually applying, how let the folks know how you would advise, how you did it and how you would advise a client on
Yep.
how to now turn off or switch from Broadway to American Red Cross, or
Yep. I'm
how
gonna
do you do
fi-
that?
I'm gonna find my handy little favorite tool to do it. So
Awesome.
I use two highlighters. So what I did is I printed out that job description and I highlighted everything in that job that I knew how to do: research, organize, software, talk to people, train. I highlighted those things in blue. The things that I said, I don't even know what this means, I don't know how to do, I highlighted in yellow. And what that was a skills assessment and a gap analysis. I
Mm,
had a visual representation of this is what I can do, this is what I need to learn. So when it came to writing my resume, the things that I highlighted in blue, I knew those are the things that I needed to put on my resume. And an example was even in the theater when I was going from one theater to the next. See, that's the thing about jobs. Job descriptions are different, not only just across industries, but across companies. They're different, right? You look up a project manager and you can find 10 different job descriptions for that one title. So when I was going from theater to theater, I remember at one of my theaters, a big part of my role was to manage the vehicles, the fleet, to get them fixed, to keep them registered, to do the insurance, and all of those things. That was about 30 to 40% of my time. But when I was applying for another theater, nowhere in that job description did it talk about managing the vehicles and the fleet. So then nowhere in my resume did I have those bullets, even though it was 30% of my previous job. It was nowhere in the resume when I applied for the next job. They wanted things like negotiations with the designers, with the vendors, with the backstage hands. And even though that was like 10% of my previous job, I really broke it down into the resume so that they could see what they wanted to see and what they needed to see. Another thing that I do is I also number the bullets on the job description, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the order that they are in the job description. Then I go look in my resume and I try to find a bullet that matches bullet number 1 in the job description, and I put a 1 by it. Then I do number 2. I find something in my resume, and if I don't have something, I write a bullet that matches that and put a 2 by it. Then I organize my bullets in my resume to match the order of the bullets in the job description. So again, our resume is not about us. A lot of people think, oh, my resume is to tell my story so people can figure out how I'm going to fit in their organization. Your resume is a story to the hiring manager that says, over here, I'm your new best friend. I am exactly what you're looking for.
I love that. I love that breakdown. I've never heard that in all my years. Love that. That is such a practical, easy way, surefire way too, to make sure that you're matching and you're showing up how they need you to show up. I love that.
Right?
Towards the
I'm that
beginning
linear
of
thinker. I'm a linear
yeah.
thinker.
So towards the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned about, your superpower. A lot of people don't know what the heck their
Yeah.
superpower is. So how did you figure out, would you advise someone to figure out, okay, what is my superpower so that they can now figure out where they would best fit? Because without knowing that, it's kind of hard to figure out recognize your best opportunities, right? So how do you figure out your superpower?
There's a lot of different ways. I used assessments. So there was a lot of assessments that I took, and it just kept coming up: process driven, linear thinker, organized. Like that kept coming up. So assessments are a great way. There's a lot of difference out there. There's, Myers-Briggs and DISC, and I love Strength Finders, the Strength Finders assessment. So I use those in collaboration with a coach to kind of help me narrow things down. So it was a partnership and a collaboration. Another thing you can do is pay attention to the things that people are always asking you to do, because they're like, you're so good at this. When people say that to you, write that down. What was that thing that you were so good at that people keep asking you to do over and over and over again? Some other things to do is write down the things you like to do. Like when you think about your day, write down your daily activities, or even look at your own job description and highlight the things you like to do, to say, you know what, this is the part of my job that I like. I knew one of the things I loved in every single one of my career shifts was speaking. And everyone would ask me, my science professors would say, hey, everybody, when we have to present our papers, have Madelyn do it, because she can make our work at least sound interesting to the audience. And in the theater, I was always asked, Madelyn, you present, you do the opening night introduction, you talk, you lead off the production meetings, because you get everybody fired up with your energy and excited about the work that's ahead. And then when I was at the Red Cross, my CEO even said to everyone, hey, if we ever have to do a presentation, make sure Madelyn's in the lineup, because she can have them eating out of the palm of her hand. So, and I'll be very honest, even though I knew I loved speaking, everybody said I was good at speaking. It was someone else that said to me, you're a professional speaker, and I'm just proud to have you as a colleague, because that's what I am too. And that was the moment it clicked in my head of speaking, professional speaking. Oh my gosh, I can have a career as a professional speaker. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And that was like the big light bulb went off, that combined with my organizational skills was going to lead into my next career as the career activator. And a big part of what my company does is not only do we coach and write resumes, but I also do a lot of speaking and training with organizations.
Love that. I love that. So going back for a second when we talked about figuring out your superpower, right? So let's say you figured it out. Now, how do you deliberately, intentionally build a personal brand that emphasizes and highlights, hey guys, this is my superpower.
What's so great about living in today's society is there are so many tools to help you promote your brand and shout it from the rooftops. I would say the first thing you have to figure out is who is your audience? Who do you want to tell about this brand? You know, everyone thinks about branding and they think about businesses, right? And entrepreneurship, and you have to have a business brand. But let's just roll this back. Maybe you love your job. Maybe you love your company. You love the department and your hiring manager, your supervisor. You have no intention of leaving. So you're like, why do I need a brand? A brand helps you secure more opportunities. It helps you showcase your value to the organization that you love so that they keep you, that they promote you, that they give you raises. So there's a lot of ways to do that. Simply speaking up at meetings when you know that this is my area of expertise. Let me help you with that. Do not wait to be asked. Raise your hand, and you're suddenly going to be known of, you know what? Jennifer always raises her hand when we have this type of project, and she's really good at that. That's building a brand. That's building a reputation. Making sure you and your supervisor are on the same page about what is the superpowers and the skills and the things that you do best. Utilizing LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, LinkedIn is not just for finding a job. LinkedIn is an amazing tool to do your job and to share your expertise. Find associations. You're an admin professional. Well, there are so many amazing administrative professional organizations out there that you can go and you can speak at their conferences. You can write for their newsletters. You can post on their social media walls and share your knowledge so that then people recognize you as somebody with a specific skill translating into a brand, and they call on you to help others with that skill set. And at the end of the day, that's my belief that we are all here on this planet to help each other, to serve each other. And what better way to do that than with your special skills and superpowers?
Yes, I love that. I'm a big proponent of that as well, right? How dare you, right? Keep your gifts to yourself. They were meant for the world. Stand up and be of value and show the world how you can be of service. I love that. Love, 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 love it. Okay, so here is my next kind of segue, right? Because empowered presence is about building a personal brand, it's about really showing up, it's about being who you are with authenticity. Now, as a woman of color, I would love to hear a little bit about if there were any, special situations or struggles, challenges that you had to overcome as you were navigating all of these spaces and building your personal brand in each industry.
Yeah. As a woman of color, we always feel the weight of the race is what I call it, because we're usually the only ones in the room, or there's very few of us, especially in the different transitions that I was going through. And I remember I was a minority female, or a of color female, a Black female in a hard science. I was a chemistry major, and money was being thrown at me from all different organizations to represent the race, right? Look at this Black excellent here. Here is a chemist that is going to go and change the world. And I think for me, that pressure is why I held on to that chemistry path as long as I did, because I didn't want to disappoint others that were depending on me, that were looking to me to be the next big scientist in the world, to have some amazing discoveries. My mother even made a name placard that said Madelyn Mackie, PhD, because she was like, my child is going to go all the way to get her doctorate. She's going to be a doctorate of science. She's going to get a Nobel Prize in science. And I was like, I hate this.
Oh.
I hate this with an
Mm.
absolute passion. So that
Mm.
was a really, really challenging time. And how I transitioned out of that was I I remember just crying every day going to the lab. I was
Mm.
I was in physical and mental pain. The thought of doing this work for the next 40, 50 years of my life, because I was in my 20s. And what helped me is I saw scientists, I saw other women and men of color in the scientific field that loved it, that were so excited, that were like, guess what we did in the lab today? It was so cool. And me in the lab was always like, is it time to go? Can I go over to the theater? Because they need my help building the sets. And seeing the other's passion helped me make two decisions. Number one, it helped me realize that I didn't have the passion I needed to be successful in that field. No matter
Mm.
how good I was at it, eventually I was going to burn out. And the signs were already coming to the surface. The second thing was I realized I don't have to be the one, I don't have to be the golden child in this space. There are others. So let me step out and let them shine. And so that
Mm.
almost gave me permission to let go and let God, and let's see what would happen. So for anyone out there, we all have that struggles. And again, I call it the weight of the race, that when you look around and you're like, I can't quit, because not only am I letting myself down, but I'm letting our entire race down. Do know
Mm.
there are others that are going to step in. If this is not your passion, find your passion and step into that, and you will shine gloriously, and we will all be proud. And at the end of the day, what we want for all of our brothers and sisters is to be happy
Yes.
and to shine their light.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Oh, I love I love that story because we do feel that pressure, right? I know I felt it, and I decided I'm going to be this person. And then 2 years later I was like, "Nah, I'm out."
I got to go.
I'm out.
Y'all handle this. Hold it down, y'all. I
You
got
got
you.
it.
Power to the people. Where you want me to donate for your causes, but I'm not doing this.
I'm out. Yeah, I love that. But wow, that was such a powerful story,
Thank you.
Madeline, and such a different perspective. And so I am just I'm just loving this conversation. Oh my goodness. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about how you got to where you are now, right? You went from,
The
Tony
lab, the
Awards,
stage, the
theaters,
C-suite
all
of a
that.
nonprofit.
Now you're doing career work. So how did you transition? Talk to us how you now built your brand and how you brought all those things with you. How all that stuff culminated into positioning you now as the career activator. I would love, let's connect these
Okay.
dots.
This is my favorite story to tell, so I'm glad we have time for it today.
Yeah.
So I knew when I was at the Red Cross, they had promoted me to an officer position and essentially took the field soldier out of the field and made her a bureaucrat. And I am not a bureaucrat. I am not a politician. I'm not good at it. And so I started to get unhappy again. And whenever that unhappiness comes about, I know it's time for a shift. But at that point in my career, now we're making six figures. We got a corner office. We got a title. We're badass. And I'm like, how can I walk away from this? Like, it was really, really hard. They talk about the golden handcuffs. I had them, and they were tightly secured around my wrist. And I was called on, a board member called me and said, hey, I want you to come speak at my conference. And I was like, I don't have time to speak at your conference. She said, no, I want you to come speak at my conference. If I have to call your CEO, I will do it. And I was like, I don't like these people. And I went and spoke at the conference. And that's when the person came up to me and said, you're a professional speaker, and I'm so proud to have you as a colleague. And that's when my mind opened up of speaking, training. That's what I want to do. That's what I've loved in every single one of my careers. But how does one do that? So what did I do? I went and learned and researched and studied becoming a professional speaker. I enrolled in the National Speakers Association Speakers Academy that taught you how to build a speaking business, because I'm like, I'm not giving up these golden handcuffs. until I know what I'm going to be doing, because rent still has to be paid. I still need health
Right.
insurance. I got to keep clothes on my back. I got to feed myself. So I was like, we have to know how to do this and set this up correctly. So they taught me how to build a business and to create an exit strategy from my current role. And the secret was, they said, Madelyn, figure out what story you want to tell over and over and over again, like a singer who has that one hit song, and they better sing that song at every concert or
Yeah.
people are going to riot, right? You know, Michael Jackson had to sing Beat It. Prince better never leave the stage before Purple Rain. Garth Brooks had to sing Friends in Low Places, right? So they were like, what story do you want to tell over and over again? And for me, that story was going from the lab to the stage to the C-suite. So I would tell that story, and I could not believe how many people were so unhappy in their jobs that after I would give that speech, they would storm the stage and say, I hate my job just like you did, and I want to find something different. Will you help me? Can I hire you? Will you be my career
Mm.
coach? Will you write my resume? And I was like, how does one do that? And so then I went and got certifications as a career coach, because I said, I'm not going to just hang out a shingle and say, okay, I'm a career coach now. I wanted to know the proper methods and techniques to do it. Then I said, okay, if I'm going to be a resume writer, I found the National Resume Writers Association. And then I took all of their courses on how to be a professional resume writer, how to set up a business, how to use proper grammar in the resumes. I took training. I invested in this
Mhm.
shift. And so then I started to write resumes. I started to coach. I started to speak. And 10 years later, I am still doing it. And now I have 5 resume writers on my staff, 2 executive coaches, a customer success manager. I spend 60 to 70% of my time speaking and training, living the dream. But I want to, as exciting as this sounds, and where your audience may be like, I'm going to go do that. It was a process, ladies and gentlemen. Taking the trainings, immersing myself in these new industries, falling down and getting back up, investing time, money, and energy into this transition is what has gotten me to where I am today. It was not an overnight success. It was a lot of hard work, but it was well worth it.
And I think it will be worth it if you love it, right? Just imagine all that hard work, like all these folks that go to college and they have all these degrees and they did the PhD thing, and they can't stand
At all.
it.
Oh, and I'm like, what were you doing? What were you thinking?
Yeah, and it's like you have to follow your enjoyment. You have to follow the joy. You have to follow. It's not going to be peaches and cream every day. That's not what we're saying at all. It's still going to feel like work a lot of times. But if you're done and you look at your day, you're like, ah, that was great. Then you're going to do it again tomorrow.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think that piece is so, so important. So there's a question that came through, and I want to see if you would like to address it.
Okay.
Okay, it's a pretty big question. So pretty much 5-year career transition, having a tough time in the job search, interested in data analysis. And the question is, how can she transition to the industry while being a personal caregiver for her parents? The problem she's facing is receiving the pressure of finding clerical jobs with little to no experience and being told go online and look for jobs in government and healthcare. This results in me being lost with a confused resume. Also, she adds she's an introvert with social anxiety. Any quick tips or strategy you could share with Brianna?
First of all, data analysis is a great field for you to go into because those jobs are still potentially remote. So if you don't like to talk to others, play well with others, hang around with them in the lunch break room, I totally understand that. I too am an introvert. People are like, no, really? I said, really? I'm an introvert. But so the types of roles that you're looking for are more likely to be remote. And I would say connect yourself with that tribe. So find the data analysis association, maybe do a data analysis boot camp that has a career component. See, there's a lot of these tech boot camps out there, but find one that has a process to help you find a job in the field, that has the relationships with the type of companies you want to work for, and go through that and check and see if they have scholarships, ask for sponsors. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach it, but I would say try to connect yourself to that industry first, just like I did, connecting myself to the Red Cross, connecting myself to the theater, connecting myself to the National Resume Writers Association, the National Speakers Association. I did that long before I updated my resume, my bio, my LinkedIn profile, so that I could understand the industry and the potential and where I fit best. So that's my recommendation to you, Brianna. You're going to be great. You're going to be fine. Take a breath, slow things down, take a step back and do a little research, find your tribe, and the rest, take it one step at a time.
I love that. Great advice. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Brianna. Appreciate your long thought out question. Awesome. So, Madelyn, all right. So what would you say is one of the biggest things that have propelled you when it comes to like building your personal brand in this space, in terms of getting that visibility and creating that authority, that thought leadership? And now, outside of speaking, because we talked about that, is there anything else that you feel like people should really dive into to make sure that they're building that personal brand?
Yes, pick one platform and do that platform really, really, really well, right? Like, it was overwhelming when I was going to become an entrepreneur, and people were like, you got to have a Facebook page, you got to have a Twitter page, you got to have a LinkedIn page, you got to have your website, you got to have a blog. And then later on, Instagram came on the scene, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. And they were like, and you can't say the same thing on all the platforms. And I was like, why not? So for me, it was too much. It really was too much. So I decided I wasn't going to worry about Twitter. I wasn't going to worry about, or now it's X. I'm not going to worry about Facebook. I'm not going to worry about Instagram. I'm going to focus on LinkedIn, because that's the people I want to talk to. I want to talk to professionals going through career transition. And as soon as somebody's laid off or they're looking for a job, where do they go? They go to LinkedIn. So I focused all my energy on first building the right audience. So I'm very consistent. I go to a networking event. Back in the day when we used to all collect business cards and you'd come home from a conference with a stack of business cards, I would sit there and connect to every single person on LinkedIn. Now I go to conferences with the LinkedIn app on my phone. I know how to pull up the QR code, even though they change it every 6 months. And I connect with people at that conference while we're standing in line at registration, while we're sitting at the table at lunch, while we're in the workshops. I build a network. Every time I speak, I ask people, hey, follow me on LinkedIn. And I have my LinkedIn QR code up on the screen so that they follow me in the session. So now I've got an audience. Now I have to be consistent with sharing information. So I don't post every day. People are like, oh, do you post every day? No. I post when I had something to say. And usually I'd have something to say once a week. And usually what was that something? It was the call I would have. I'd have a call with a client and they'd ask me a question. And that would be the question that I would answer on my social media profile on LinkedIn. And I was very consistent with those two things: building an audience and delivering content of value to my audience on a consistent basis. And that is how I built my brand on LinkedIn, became a LinkedIn top resume writing voice, and have over 13,000 followers. So if you're listening, definitely connect or follow me on LinkedIn. You'll find me under Madelyn Mackie, Career Activator.
Yes, and there'll be a link surrounding this video that you can click and just go straight to her LinkedIn profile. Love that. Yeah, those are all awesome, wonderful tips. And I love what you said about not having to post every day, because it's a lot. It's a lot having to come up with things to say every day. and you want to feel like you're putting out something good. And then what about the times where you put out something, you put so much effort into it and it's crickets? And then one day you throw up something and it's going semi-viral. It's a lot. So just do what you can do. I love that approach. Do what you can do, but continuously put yourself out there and drive people to your LinkedIn profile. Love, 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 love it. Okay, so I have another question for you. These are big things. Even in your bio, you talk about big dreams, right? So big things are kind of hard to obtain. So how would you kind of encourage someone to keep going if they're feeling like this big dream is far-fetched or out of reach? And
Yeah.
have you ever felt that way? And what kept you going?
For me, there were three things I always did. Number one, created a vision of what I wanted. And I got very, very clear on that vision. Then cultivated the resources, the training, the network, the association. And then here's the big step, activation.
Mm.
And with activation, I always broke it down of what was the next three things I had to do. And I didn't look beyond those three things, right? Because when you think about transitioning careers or you think about becoming an entrepreneur, the list is mighty long. So for me, I said, okay, I want to start a business. Let me go find a checklist of what are the things I need to do. And let me start with the first three things. And they were like, you need to get a business license, get an EIN number, and you need to have a business plan. And that's as far as I looked. I didn't look at a website. I didn't look at getting clients. I didn't look at building revenue. The first three things I had to do was I had to get a license, an EIN number, and make a business plan. And I stopped there. And it was really important to focus on just what are the next three steps. And eventually it all does come together, because if you follow the right process and order by having a business plan written up, then part of the business plan was, figure out who your audience was, figure out what your products was, think about your pricing, think about your expenses. And as I worked through that business plan, I thought through all of these things a little at a time, one page at a time. So then when it became time for me to do a website, when that was the next thing on the list, well, I already knew who my target audience was. I knew what my services were. I knew what my pricing was because it was in the business plan. So there's an order. There is a natural order to anything you need to do, right? We talked about before you apply for a job, before you touch your resume, go find that job and highlight it. You shouldn't be writing a resume until you have an actual job you need to target. And before you target that job, you should probably be talking to people about that type of role. And anything you highlighted in that job that was in yellow, those are things you need to learn. So maybe you pick one thing and say, I'm going to sign up for an online class or go to YouTube University to learn that one thing. Step by step by step. That old adage of how do you eat an elephant? How do you start the longest journey? One bite, one step at a time.
Love that. Yeah, because you could definitely get caught up in looking at the big overarching goal. It's like, I'm trying to make $1 million and I have no sales, no clients. It can look really, really far away and like impossible. But I love how you break that down, because if you follow the system, if you follow the steps, it will happen. It has to. It kind of has to.
Exactly. Exactly. It has to. Like with this resume writing business, I was just like, we're just going to do good quality resumes. We're going to coach people. We're going to do good quality resumes. I just focused on LinkedIn and speaking as my marketing vehicles. And each year the business would grow. Like I didn't do lead generation or lead magnets and all those things. Like I just did good quality work and consistent content on 2 platforms, speaking and LinkedIn. And the business grew to the point that my resume writer said to me, Madelyn, I am full. Don't you send me anybody else. I cannot write any more resumes this week. And I was like, oh, Well, then I need to hire another resume writer.
Right.
Now it's time to hire. Okay. And before you know it, she got full. Then I was like, I got to hire another one. And then I was so busy doing sales calls and speaking, my coaching clients were like, Madelyn, I can't get in to see you and I need to get help with an interview. And I was like, then I need to hire another coach to help with all of this. You follow the natural order of things and it will all come together. I promise you.
Love that. Awesome. Ooh, this is such a great conversation. I'm loving this. I don't want to stop. But we're around the 40-minute mark, and I just wanted to ask you one last question regarding you mentioned in one of our past conversations about putting your face on Yelp. Talk to me a little bit about you're putting your face on Yelp as a business owner, as a woman of color. And so, this is all about, my audience is targeted to Black women, women of color. And so I want to touch on that thing that you mentioned before when we spoke about Yelp and putting your face on there. So why don't you go ahead and tell that?
Okay. Yes. So, as a small business owner on the list, it said you had to have a Yelp page. And I was like, okay, fine. And they said, it's better for you to create the Yelp page than to have somebody else create it, because chances are if somebody else creates it, they're probably not happy with you. So I created a Yelp page. I had my beautiful little logo on there, activate your career dreams with my stars. And I didn't get a lot of traction. And I decided one day, I noticed that my clients looked like me. They were Black professional women coming to me, and they had been referred to me by their sisters who said, hey, you need help with your career, your resume, you need to go talk to Madelyn. So I was building this referral-based business from my network of Black professional women. So I decided, on LinkedIn, I want to find more clients that look like me. So I changed the logo photo on LinkedIn to my picture, and boom, all of a sudden people saw my face and they were like, yeah, I want to do business with her. So I tell everyone, as far as your brand is concerned, your smile, a professional headshot is one of the best investments in your brand that you can make. Because people like to do business, they like to hire, they like to partner, they like to promote people they know, like, and trust. And your face is the start of building that relationship. So for all of you listening on LinkedIn, look at your LinkedIn profile photo. How old is it? If it is older than 2 years, you need to update it. You need to make sure all your profile photos are professional. You don't have to go to a professional photographer. You can have a friend take it with your iPhone against a nice background. But a professional headshot can make all the difference in building a professional brand. And it's a great step to take.
I love that. It reminds me of when I first started, when I was still working my corporate job and I was trying to build Resume Evolution. I had everything was that globe, that logo, everything. Because I was hiding, because I didn't want my company to know. Right. And as soon as I got laid off, baby, everything was my face. My face was everywhere.
I love it. Yes, it's huge. It's huge.
Yep. So yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, you shared so many wonderful things and tips and awesome, powerful stories today, Madelyn. Is there any last words you want to leave with our audience? And then after that, tell us where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Absolutely. So my final message to all of you, create a vision of the ideal position and future that you want. Cultivate the resources you need to make that happen. And most importantly, activate a simple 1, 2, 3-step plan to make your dreams come true. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Madelyn Mackie, or as you see at the bottom of your screen, my website, madelynmackie.com. You can schedule a complimentary consultation with my customer success manager, and we can start the process of activating your career dreams.
Love it. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. I appreciate you so much. Thank you again. And listen, folks, if you are really looking to build your personal brand, if you're looking to switch careers, if you're looking to move into a whole different industry, if you're ready to follow your passion, Madelyn can help you with that for sure. All right. So reach out to her if you have any questions about that stuff, if you want support in those areas. And in the meantime, happy self-marketing.
All right. Empower your presence, everybody.
That's right.